In a quiet corner of the world, far from bustling cities and crowded streets, there was a man named Ryan Carter. He wasn't particularly famous or wealthy, but he had a mind that never seemed to rest. Ryan worked at a small observatory perched on a hilltop, surrounded by dense forests and endless skies. It was his job to study the stars, track their movements, and listen for anything unusual in the vastness of space. For years, his work had been routine charting constellations, monitoring solar flares, and occasionally spotting comets streaking across the night sky. But one chilly evening, everything changed. As Ryan sat hunched over his computer screens, sipping lukewarm coffee, something caught his attention. A faint signal flickered on one of the monitors, barely noticeable amidst the static. At first, he thought it might be interference caused by Earth's own satellites, or perhaps a glitch in the equipment. But as he adjusted the dials and filters, the signal grew clearer. It wasn't random noise. It was structured, deliberate, and unlike anything he'd ever encountered before. Ryan leaned closer, his heart pounding with excitement. Could this be it? The question humanity had been asking for centuries: was there intelligent life beyond Earth? He quickly called Lisa Morgan, a fellow scientist who often collaborated with him on complex projects. Lisa arrived within minutes, her curly hair pulled back into a messy bun, and her coat still damp from the cold wind outside. Together, they pored over the data, running calculations and cross-referencing frequencies. "It's not natural," Lisa murmured after hours of analysis. "This is artificial. Someone or something is sending this." The realization hit them like a thunderclap. They weren't alone in the universe. Whatever or whoever had sent the signal was out there, watching, waiting, or maybe even reaching out. Over the next few days, Ryan and Lisa worked tirelessly to decode the message embedded in the signal. It wasn't easy. The language was alien, its patterns foreign and unfamiliar. But slowly, piece by piece, they began to understand. The message wasn't friendly. It wasn't an invitation to explore the cosmos or share knowledge. Instead, it was a warning, a declaration of dominance. "They're coming," Ryan said. One night, his voice trembling as he stared at the decoded text on the screen. "They say they're taking over." Lisa frowned, leaning back in her chair. "Taking over what?" "Everything," Ryan replied grimly. "Earth, us, all of it." News of the discovery spread quickly once Ryan and Lisa reported their findings to the authorities. At first, no one believed them. Government officials dismissed the signal as a hoax or a misinterpretation of data. But when other observatories around the world confirmed the same transmission, panic began to set in. World leaders convened emergency meetings, scrambling to decide how to respond. Scientists debated whether the signal was genuine or some elaborate prank. Meanwhile, ordinary people went about their lives, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing above their heads. That changed when the ships arrived. One morning, just as the sun began to rise, the sky darkened ominously. Massive objects descended from orbit, blotting out the light and casting long shadows across the planet. These weren't mere spaceships. They were colossal structures, each larger than any city on Earth. People stepped outside their homes, staring upward in awe and terror as the vessels hovered silently above major continents. News channels broadcast live footage of the event, showing crowds gathering in streets and parks, pointing at the sky with wide eyes. Ryan watched from the observatory, his hands gripping the railing of the balcony. Beside him, Lisa stood frozen, her face pale. Neither of them had imagined the scale of what was happening. The ships didn't look like sleek, futuristic craft from movies. They were jagged and imposing, covered in strange markings that glowed faintly. Their presence felt oppressive, as though the air itself weighed heavier under their shadow. Then came the message. A holographic figure appeared in every major city simultaneously, towering over buildings and monuments. It was humanoid in shape, though clearly not human. Its skin shimmered with iridescent hues, and its eyes burned with an unnatural intensity. The being introduced itself as Commander Vrax, a representative of the Galactic Empire and Interstellar civilization that ruled thousands of planets across the galaxy. His voice boomed through speakers, amplified to impossible levels, leaving no doubt about his authority. "You are primitive," Vrax declared, his tone dripping with disdain. "Your technology is laughable. Your societies are chaotic. You are unworthy of independence." The crowd below fell silent, stunned by the sheer arrogance of the statement. Vrax continued, describing Earth as nothing more than a resource-rich planet ripe for conquest. He announced that humanity would be assimilated into the Empire, stripped of its autonomy, and forced to serve as laborers and subjects. Resistance, he warned, would be met with swift and merciless punishment. As the hologram faded, chaos erupted. People screamed and ran in all directions, unsure of what to do. Some collapsed to their knees, overwhelmed by fear. Others shouted angrily, vowing to fight back against the invaders. Social media exploded with posts, videos, and frantic messages. Governments issued statements urging calm, but their words did little to quell the rising tide of panic. Back at the observatory, Ryan and Lisa exchanged worried glances. They had known the Empire was coming, but hearing Vrax's words made the reality sink in. Humanity was facing extinction or worse, enslavement, and there seemed to be no way to stop it. The Empire's ships bristled with weapons capable of obliterating entire cities in seconds. Their shields rendered conventional attacks useless. Even nuclear missiles, the most powerful tools humanity possessed, would likely bounce harmlessly off their defenses. "We can't just give up," Ryan said finally, breaking the silence. "There has to be a way." Lisa sighed, rubbing her temples. "What can we possibly do?" "Look at them, Ryan. They're gods, compared to us." Ryan shook his head stubbornly. "Maybe they are stronger, faster, and better armed, but they don't know us. They don't understand what we're capable of." He paced the room, his mind racing. Humanity had faced countless challenges throughout history: wars, plagues, natural disasters, and had always found a way to survive. What made this situation any different? Sure, the odds were stacked against them, but humans had one advantage the Empire couldn't match: creativity. While the aliens relied on brute force and advanced technology, humanity thrived on innovation, adaptability, and sheer determination. "We need to think differently," Ryan said, stopping mid. "We can't beat them head on, but maybe we don't have to." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "What are you suggesting? Traps, tricks, anything to level the playing field? If we make them underestimate us, if we get inside their heads, we might stand a chance." Over the next few days, Ryan and Lisa assembled a small team of engineers, programmers, and strategists. Among them was Jake, Ryan's childhood friend, and a skilled mechanic who could fix almost anything. There was also Emily, a journalist who had been covering the crisis and offered to help spread their message to inspire others. Together, they holed up in the observatory, working around the clock to devise a plan. Their first step was to analyze the Empire's technology. Using telescopes and radar systems, they studied the ship's movements, shield patterns, and energy signatures. Lisa discovered that the shields pulsed rhythmically, creating brief windows of vulnerability. If timed correctly, concentrated attacks during those moments could penetrate the defenses. Armed with this knowledge, the team began modifying old satellites and military equipment into makeshift weapons. Meanwhile, Emily used her connections in the media to rally public support. She wrote articles and gave interviews, highlighting stories of ordinary people stepping up to defend their homes. Her words resonated deeply, inspiring communities to come together and contribute whatever they could. Factories reopened to produce materials needed for the resistance. Farmers donated food to feed volunteers. Artists painted murals, depicting unity and courage. Slowly but surely, humanity began to unite not out of obedience to leaders, but out of a shared desire to protect their freedom. Despite these efforts, skepticism remained. Many doubted that a ragtag group of scientists and civilians could stand against the might of the Galactic Empire. Some accused Ryan and his team of wasting valuable resources that should have been spent negotiating peace. Others simply resigned themselves to fate, believing resistance was futile. But Ryan refused to listen to the naysayers. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, even impossible. Yet he also knew that giving up meant surrendering not just their lives, but their identity as a species. As the days passed, tension mounted. The Empire showed no signs of leaving. Occasionally, smaller scout ships descended to Earth's surface, scanning cities and conducting experiments. Reports surfaced of abductions, people vanishing without a trace, only to return days later with no memory of what had happened. Fear gripped the population, threatening to unravel the fragile unity Ryan and his team had worked so hard to build. Still, they pressed on. Every setback fueled their resolve. Every challenge pushed them to think harder, work faster, and dream bigger. In the quiet moments between planning sessions, Ryan often gazed at the stars, wondering if anyone else out-T. As the days turned into weeks, the presence of the Galactic Empire loomed larger over Earth. Their massive ships remained stationary in orbit, casting long shadows across cities and countryside alike. People adjusted to the eerie sight of the alien vessels dominating the skies, but beneath the surface, fear simmered like a slow-burning fire. The Empire hadn't made another direct broadcast since Commander Vrax's initial announcement, but their silence was more unsettling than any threat. It felt like the calm before a storm, an ominous pause that left humanity guessing what would come next. Ryan Carter and his team continued working tirelessly at the observatory, refining their plan to resist the invaders. They knew time was running out. Every day spent preparing was another day the Empire could launch its attack. Despite the pressure, Ryan refused to let despair creep in. He reminded himself and his team that humans had always thrived under pressure. Wars, disasters, pandemics, they had faced them all and survived. This was no different. The only difference now was the scale of the challenge. Lisa Morgan played a key role in analyzing the Empire's technology, using data gathered from radar scans and intercepted transmissions. She mapped out patterns in the shields surrounding the ships. Her findings confirmed her earlier suspicions. The shields pulsed rhythmically, creating brief gaps every few minutes. These gaps were tiny, lasting mere seconds, but they were enough. If timed correctly, concentrated attacks during these moments could weaken or even disable the shields entirely. The problem was figuring out how to deliver such attacks without being obliterated in the process. Jake, Ryan's childhood friend, took charge of modifying old satellites and military equipment into weapons capable of exploiting these vulnerabilities. Working alongside a group of engineers, he transformed outdated tech into something new and dangerous. Missiles were fitted with EMP electromagnetic pulse devices designed to disrupt the Empire's systems. Drones were programmed to swarm enemy ships, targeting weak points identified by Lisa's research. Though the resources were limited, Jake's ingenuity ensured that every piece of scrap metal served a purpose. Meanwhile, Emily used her platform as a journalist to keep spirits high. Her articles and broadcasts painted a picture of hope amidst chaos. She highlighted stories of ordinary people stepping up to help, from factory workers producing materials for the resistance to teachers, organizing community shelters. Emily's words resonated deeply, reminding everyone that humanity wasn't defined by its leaders or armies, but by its collective strength. Her efforts helped galvanize global support, turning isolated acts of defiance into a unified movement. Despite these preparations, tensions within the team grew. Jake often worked late into the night, pushing himself to the brink of exhaustion. He carried the weight of responsibility heavily, knowing that failure meant not just his death but the deaths of millions. One evening, as he tinkered with a malfunctioning drone, Ryan approached him. "You should take a break," Ryan said gently. "You're going to burn yourself out." Jake sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. "I can't stop, Ryan. Not when we're this close. What if I mess something up? What if one of these drones fails during the fight?" Ryan placed a hand on his shoulder. "We're all scared, Jake, but none of us are doing this alone. We've got each other's backs. That's what makes us strong." Though Jake nodded, doubt lingered in his expression. Ryan understood. Fear had a way of creeping into even the bravest hearts. Still, he hoped his words offered some comfort. The Empire's patience eventually wore thin. Without warning, they initiated their first major strike, a devastating orbital bombardment aimed at Earth's largest cities. Bright beams of energy rained down from the sky, obliterating buildings and reducing entire neighborhoods to rubble. The attacks were precise, surgical, and utterly merciless. Fires spread uncontrollably, filling the air with thick smoke and ash. Survivors fled in terror, clutching whatever belongings they could carry. Ryan and his team watched the destruction unfold on live broadcasts, their hearts sinking. The scale of the devastation was unimaginable. Entire populations were displaced overnight, forced to seek refuge in rural areas or underground bunkers. Hospitals overflowed with casualties, and food and water supplies dwindled rapidly. For many, it felt like the end of the world. But amid the chaos, something remarkable happened. Instead of breaking, humanity rallied. Communities came together to care for the wounded and share scarce resources. Volunteers risked their lives to rescue trapped survivors and extinguish raging fires. In the face of overwhelming despair, acts of kindness and bravery shone brighter than ever before. Even those who had doubted Ryan's plan began to see the value in fighting back. Commander Vrax made another appearance shortly after the bombardment, his holographic form towering over the ruins of a once thriving metropolis. His tone was smug, dripping with condescension. "You see now how futile your resistance is," he declared. "Your weapons are toys. Your defenses are jokes. Surrender, and you may yet survive as slaves. Resist further, and you will be erased." His words stung, but they also ignited a spark of defiance. Rather than cowering in fear, people responded with anger. Protesters filled the streets, chanting slogans of unity and resilience. Artists painted murals depicting Vrax's face crossed out, symbolizing humanity's refusal to bow. Even children joined the effort, drawing pictures of Earth standing tall against the alien invaders. Emily captured these moments in her reporting, sharing them with the world. Her message was clear: humanity might be outmatched, but it would never surrender. Each story she told became a rallying cry, inspiring others to join the fight. Back at the observancy, Ryan and his team finalized their strategy. They decided to launch a coordinated counterattack during the Empire's ceremonial entry into orbit, a grand display meant to showcase their dominance. The timing was critical. By attacking during this event, they hoped to catch the invaders off guard and deal significant damage. To maximize their chances, Ryan proposed using deception, drawing on humanity's mastery of psychological warfare. He suggested spreading misinformation to confuse the Empire's commanders. Lisa hacked into their communication channels, planting fake orders and false reports about troop movements. Meanwhile, Emily broadcast messages of defiance, sowing doubt among the ranks of Imperial soldiers who might question the morality of their mission. On the eve of the battle, Ryan gathered his team for a final briefing. The room was tense, filled with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Everyone knew the stakes. Failure meant annihilation. Success, however slim, offered a glimmer of hope. "We've done everything we can," Ryan said, addressing the group. "Tomorrow, we show them what humanity is made of. We've faced challenges before, and we'll face them again. Together, we can do this. One by one, the team members nodded, determination etched on their faces. Jake managed a small smile, though his hands still trembled slightly. Lisa double-checked her calculations, ensuring nothing had been overlooked. Emily recorded a final video message, vowing to document humanity's stand until her last breath. As dawn broke the following morning, the Empire began their ceremony. Smaller ships descended from the motherships, forming intricate patterns in the sky. Beams of light illuminated the clouds, creating a dazzling spectacle meant to awe and intimidate. Below, crowds gathered to watch, unsure whether to marvel at the display or brace for another attack. At precisely the right moment, Ryan gave the signal. From hidden bases around the globe, swarms of drones launched into the air, targeting the Empire's ships. Simultaneously, ground forces fired salvos of EMP-equipped missiles, aiming for the brief gaps in the shields. The effect was immediate and chaotic. Dozens of ships faltered, their systems disrupted by the electromagnetic pulses. Others found themselves surrounded by relentless drone assaults, struggling to regain control. Commander Vrax appeared once more, his expression one of shock and fury. He hadn't anticipated such a bold move, not from a species he considered primitive and weak. As explosions rocked the sky and ships tumbled from orbit, his holographic form flickered, momentarily losing coherence. This is impossible," he snarled, his voice tinged with disbelief. "How dare you defy the Empire?" Ryan watched the scene unfold from a remote command center, his heart racing. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel a sliver of hope. Against all odds, humanity had struck a blow. The Empire wasn't invincible. They bled, they faltered, and they could be beaten. But the battle was far from over. The initial success of humanity's counterattack was both exhilarating and terrifying. For the first time since the Galactic Empire's arrival, people dared to believe that victory might be possible. The sight of alien ships faltering under coordinated assaults filled the airwaves, sparking celebrations in streets and shelters alike. Yet, amidst the cheers and renewed hope, Ryan Carter and his team knew better than to relax. This was only the beginning. The Empire still held overwhelming advantages: superior numbers, advanced technology, and centuries of experience in warfare. One successful strike didn't mean the war was won. It simply meant the fight had begun, as the dust settled from the opening skirmishes. Commander Vrax regained his composure. His holographic form reappeared across major cities, larger and more menacing than before. His glowing eyes scanned the ruins below, lingering on the smoldering remains of his own ships. Though visibly angered, there was no trace of fear in his voice, only cold determination. "You have made your choice," he said, his tone icy. "Now you will face the consequences." True to his word, the Empire retaliated with brutal efficiency. Waves of smaller fighters descended from orbit, targeting not just military installations, but civilian areas as well. Energy beams sliced through buildings, reducing entire blocks to rubble. Explosions echoed in every direction, shaking the ground and sending shockwaves rippling through the air. It was clear, the Empire intended to crush resistance swiftly and mercilessly. Ryan and his team scrambled to adapt. The observatory had been converted into a makeshift command center, its walls lined with monitors displaying real-time updates from battlefronts around the globe. Lisa Morgan worked tirelessly to track the movements of enemy ships, identifying patterns and vulnerabilities. Jake focused on repairing damaged drones and recalibrating EMP devices, ensuring they remained effective against the Empire's evolving tactics. Emily continued broadcasting messages of defiance, urging people to stay strong despite the escalating destruction. Yet, for all their efforts, the toll of the conflict weighed heavily on everyone. Sleep became a luxury none could afford. Meals were skipped, voices grew hoarse, and tempers flared under the strain. Even Ryan, who had always been the pillar of strength for the group, found himself struggling. He often stared at maps of Earth, tracing the scars left by the Empire's attacks. Cities he once knew by name were now reduced to blackened craters. Millions had died already, and millions more were displaced. The guilt gnawed at him. Was this his fault? Had his plan led humanity into a hopeless struggle? One evening, after another grueling day of fighting, Lisa approached Ryan as he stood alone on the observatory balcony. She handed him a cup of coffee. Steaming hot and bitter, a rare luxury in these times. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world," she said softly. Ryan managed a weak smile. "Feels like I am." Lisa leaned against the railing beside him, gazing up at the stars, partially obscured by smoke. "We all are, but you can't let it break you. If you do, then we've already lost." Her words struck a chord. Ryan nodded slowly, taking a sip of the coffee. I keep thinking about how many lives we've lost, how much pain we've caused, and how much worse it would be if we gave up," Lisa countered firmly. "This isn't about us anymore. It's about everyone, the ones who've already suffered, and the ones we're trying to protect. We owe it to them to keep going." Her conviction reignited something in Rihanna, flicker of resolve that had begun to dim. He realized she was right. Giving up wasn't an option. Humanity had chosen to fight, not because it was easy, but because surrender meant losing everything that made them human. With renewed determination, Ryan returned to the command center, ready to lead his team through whatever came next. The Empire's second wave of attacks brought new challenges. Their smaller fighters proved faster and more agile than expected, evading most of the EMP-equipped drones. Worse, they began deploying automated defense systems that intercepted incoming missiles before they could reach their targets. Each setback forced Ryan and his team to rethink their strategy. They couldn't rely solely on technology. Needed creativity. Jake proposed a radical idea, using decoys to lure the Empire's forces into traps. Old planes and vehicles were stripped down and fitted with heat signatures and radar reflectors, making them appear as legitimate threats. These decoys were launched en masse, drawing enemy fighters away from critical locations, while the aliens focused on destroying the fake targets. Human forces struck vulnerable points in their formations. The plan worked at least partially. Several squadrons of Imperial fighters were diverted, allowing ground teams to regroup and launch fresh assaults. However, the cost was high. Many of the decoys were manned by volunteers who sacrificed themselves to ensure the ruse succeeded. Among them was Jake's younger brother, Daniel, a mechanic who had joined the resistance despite his family's objections. When news of his death reached Jake, he retreated to the workshop, refusing to speak to anyone. Ryan found him hours later, sitting silently amidst tools and half-finished projects. Tears streaked Jake's face, but his expression was unreadable, neither angry nor sad, just hollow. "I'm sorry," Ryan said quietly, unsure of what else to say. Jake didn't respond immediately. He picked up a wrench and began tightening bolts on a nearby drone, his hands moving mechanically. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "He knew the risks. We all did. Doesn't make it hurt any less." Ryan placed a hand on his shoulder. "He saved lives today. Because of him, we're still standing." Jake nodded, though his eyes remained distant. After a moment, he set the wrench aside and wiped his face. "We need to finish this. For him, for everyone." While the battles raged on, Emily's broadcasts played a crucial role in maintaining morale. Her reports highlighted stories of courage and resilience, reminding people why they were fighting. She interviewed survivors, soldiers, and volunteers, sharing their experiences with the world. One story stood out: a young girl named Mia, who had helped evacuate her neighbors during an attack. Despite being injured herself, she carried a toddler to safety and refused treatment until others were cared for first. Emily's footage of Mia went viral, becoming a symbol of hope and unity. Commander Vrax took notice of the growing defiance. In another broadcast, he mocked humanity's attempts to inspire itself, calling their stories pathetic and insignificant. But his words rang hollow. The more he tried to crush hope, the stronger it seemed to grow. People rallied around figures like Mia, finding strength in shared struggles. Even those who had doubted Ryan's plan now embraced it, realizing that resistance wasn't just about survival, it was about preserving their humanity. As the days turned into weeks, Ryan and his team discovered something unexpected. The Empire's overconfidence was its greatest weakness. Despite their technological superiority, they underestimated humanity at every turn. Their reliance on brute force and intimidation blinded them to subtler strategies. By exploiting this flaw, Ryan devised a daring mission to infiltrate one of the Empire's larger ships. The plan was risky. A small team would pilot a captured Imperial fighter, disguising themselves as part of the fleet. Once aboard, they would plant explosives in key areas, disabling the ship's shields and weapons. The goal wasn't just to destroy the vessel, it was to send a message. Humanity wouldn't back down. No matter the odds, Jake volunteered immediately, unwilling to sit on the sidelines after losing Daniel. Lisa insisted on joining him, citing her expertise in navigating alien systems. Ryan reluctantly agreed, knowing they were two of the best suited for the task. Before leaving, he pulled them aside for a final briefing. "This is dangerous," he warned. "If anything goes wrong, don't hesitate to abort. Your lives matter more than anything." Jake grinned, though it didn't reach his eyes. "We'll be fine. Just make sure you're ready to pick us up when we blow this thing sky high." With that, the infiltration team departed. As their fighter disappeared into the chaos of space, Ryan returned to the command center, praying they would return alive. The battle ahead was far from over, but for the first time, he felt a glimmer of optimism. Humanity had proven time and again that it could rise above despair. It would continue to do so, no matter what the Empire threw at them. The infiltration mission began under the cover of darkness, or as close to darkness as Earth's skies could offer, with the Empire's massive ships blotting out the stars. Jake and Lisa climbed into the captured Imperial fighter, its sleek design and glowing panels a stark contrast to humanity's patched-together drones and missiles. The craft had been modified slightly to mask their presence, but there was no guarantee it would fool the Empire's sensors for long. As they lifted off from a hidden base buried deep in the mountains, Ryan watched anxiously from the command center, his hands clenched into fists. "Stay safe," he muttered under his breath, though he knew they couldn't hear him. Inside the fighter, Jake gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white. Beside him, Lisa focused on monitoring the ship's systems, ensuring their disguise held up. Neither spoke much during the flight. The weight of what lay ahead pressed heavily on both of them. They were flying straight into enemy territory, surrounded by forces that could obliterate them in seconds if discovered. But neither hesitated. This was their chance to strike back, not just for themselves, but for everyone who had suffered since the Empire's arrival. As they approached the target, a towering alien vessel bristling with weapons, Lisa activated the cloaking device. The fighter shimmered briefly, before disappearing entirely, blending seamlessly into the void of space. Moments later, they slipped past the outer defenses, dodging patrols and automated turrets. It was nerve-wracking work, requiring split-second decisions and perfect coordination. One wrong move, and they'd be detected instantly. "We're in," Lisa whispered, as they docked inside the ship's hangar bay. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly as she powered down the engines. Jake nodded, grabbing a small satchel filled with explosives. "Let's make this count." The interior of the alien ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls pulsed faintly with light, as though the structure itself were alive. Strange symbols glowed along the corridors, shifting and rearranging in patterns that defied logic. The air smelled metallic, sharp and cold, making it hard to breathe, without feeling lightheaded. Jake and Lisa moved cautiously, sticking to the shadows and avoiding patrols of armored soldiers. Each step felt like walking on thin ice, every sound amplified in the eerie silence. Lisa used a handheld scanner to navigate, guiding them toward critical systems based on schematics she had pieced together from intercepted data. Their first objective was the shield generator, massive machine humming with energy at the heart of the ship. Disabling it would leave the vessel vulnerable to attack, giving humanity's forces an opening to strike. "This way," Lisa said softly, pointing down a narrow corridor. She paused suddenly, holding up a hand to stop Jake. Ahead, 2 guards stood outside a sealed door, their weapons drawn and ready. They spoke in guttural tones, their language incomprehensible, yet unmistakably hostile. Jake glanced at Lisa, raising an eyebrow. "Got any ideas?" She frowned, thinking quickly. Then she pulled a small device from her pocket, a portable EMP emitter designed to disable electronics within a short range. "Cover me," she whispered. Jake nodded, stepping forward slightly to block her, while she crept closer to the guards. With a soft click, she activated the device. A burst of static electricity surged through the corridor, causing the lights to flicker and the guards' equipment to fail. Confused and disoriented, they stumbled backward, giving Jake and Lisa just enough time to slip past them and into the restricted area beyond. Inside, the shield generator loomed large, its surface covered in pulsating conduits and glowing panels. Lisa immediately set to work, connecting wires and planting charges at key points. Jake kept watch, his eyes darting between the entrance and the darkened corners of the room. Every second felt like an eternity, the hum of the generator growing louder, as if warning them to leave. "Hurry," Jake urged, his voice barely audible over the noise. "Almost done," Lisa replied, her fingers moving quickly across the control panel. Finally, she stepped back, nodding. "That should do it. Let's go." They retraced their steps, moving faster now that their mission was complete. But as they neared the hangar bay, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed overhead, bathing the corridors in a harsh glow. Somewhere along the way, their presence had been detected. "Guess we overstayed our welcome," Jake said grimly, gripping his weapon tighter. Lisa didn't respond, her focus entirely on finding a route back to the fighter. The ship's layout had changed subtly since their arrival, adaptive pathways redirecting traffic to trap intruders. They were forced to improvise, taking detours through maintenance tunnels and cargo holds. At one point, they encountered a group of soldiers rounding a corner. Jake acted quickly, tossing a smoke grenade to obscure their vision. In the confusion, they slipped away unnoticed, but not unscathed. Jake's arm was grazed by a stray shot, leaving a burning line of pain across his skin. "We can't keep this up forever," Lisa said, as they finally reached the hangar bay. Their fighters sat untouched, still cloaked and waiting for them, but the bay doors were sealed shut, guarded by a squad of heavily armed troops. Jake gritted his teeth, examining the situation. "We need a distraction." Without hesitation, he grabbed a nearby tool, a heavy wrench hand, hurled it at a nearby console. Sparks flew as the system short-circuited, triggering a chain reaction that sent crates tumbling and machinery grinding to life. The sudden chaos drew the guards' attention, giving Lisa the opportunity to hack the door controls. With a final burst of effort, she managed to override the lock, and the door slid open just wide enough for the fighter to squeeze through. "Go," Jake shouted, climbing into the cockpit behind her. Lisa fired up the engines, and the fighter shot forward, narrowly avoiding blasts from the pursuing guards. Once clear of the hangar, they activated the cloaking device again, vanishing into the vastness of space. Behind them, the alien ship rocked violently as the explosives detonated, disabling its shields and crippling its weapon systems. "Cheers," erupted in the command center as Ryan watched the feed. Relief washing over him. They did it, he murmured, sinking into his chair. For the first time in days, he allowed himself a moment of quiet triumph. Back on Earth, the effects of the infiltration were immediate. With the Empire's flagship disabled, human forces launched a coordinated assault, focusing their remaining resources on the weakened vessel. Drones swarmed around it, targeting exposed weak points. Missiles streaked through the void, striking with precision. Though the battle was far from over, the victory boosted morale across the globe. People celebrated in the streets, clinging to hope even as the war raged on. Commander Vrax, however, was furious. His holographic form appeared once more, larger and more menacing than ever. He addressed humanity directly, his voice dripping with venom. "You think this changes anything?" he sneered. "Your pathetic tricks may have damaged one ship, but you cannot win. The Empire is eternal. Your resistance is meaningless." His words fell flat. Humanity had tasted victory, however, small, and it fueled their determination. Emily broadcast footage of the damaged ship, highlighting the cracks in the Empire's armor. Her message was simple. If humanity could hurt the Empire once, it could do so again and again, until freedom was secured. Ryan gathered his team after the mission debrief, exhausted but proud. Jake sported a bandage on his injured arm, and Lisa looked pale but resolute. Despite everything, there was a sense of camaraderie among them, shared understanding of what they had accomplished together. "We hit them where it hurts," Ryan said, addressing the group, "but they'll come back harder next time. We need to be ready." No one argued. They all knew the fight wasn't over. The Empire might be wounded, but it was far from defeated. Still, for the first time in weeks, there was a spark of optimism. In the air, humanity had proven it could adapt, innovate, and endure even against impossible odds. And as long as that spirit remained, the battle for Earth was far from lost. The victory against the Empire's flagship was a turning point, but it came at a cost. The damaged vessel remained in orbit, a grim reminder of the devastation humanity had endured and inflicted. Fires still burned across cities, and millions of displaced people struggled to find shelter and food. Yet, amidst the ruins, there was a newfound sense of purpose. People worked together, rebuilding what they could, and preparing for the battles ahead. Ryan Carter and his team knew that the Empire wouldn't retreat after such a blow. If anything, their retaliation would be fiercer and more brutal. Back at the observatory-turned-command center, Ryan gathered his team to assess the situation. Lisa sat hunched over her laptop, analyzing data from the recent attack. Jake leaned against a wall, nursing his injured arm while staring blankly at the floor. Emily stood near the window, filming another report aimed at keeping morale high. Despite their exhaustion, none of them dared to rest. Every moment counted. "We hurt them," Ryan began, pacing the room. "But we all know this isn't over. Vrax will come back stronger. We need to anticipate his next move." Lisa looked up from her screen, her expression grim. "I've been studying their patterns. They're angry now, and when they're angry, they don't hold back. I think they'll target critical infrastructure power grids, water supplies, communication networks." Jake nodded, wincing as he shifted his weight. "They want to break us, make us desperate enough to surrender." Ryan clenched his fists. "Then we can't let them succeed. We need to protect those systems at all costs." Emily lowered her camera, stepping closer to the group. "How do we do that? We're spread thin as it is. There aren't enough resources to defend everything." Ryan paused, considering her words. She was right. Humanity's forces were stretched to the limit, and the Empire's overwhelming numbers made defense nearly impossible. But giving up wasn't an option. Instead, he proposed a strategy born out of necessity, deception, and misdirection. "We can't guard everything," Ryan admitted. But maybe we don't have to. What if we make them think we're defending places that don't matter? Fake power plants, empty reservoirs, decoy communication towers. It'll buy us time to reinforce the real ones. The idea sparked a flurry of discussion. Lisa quickly pulled up maps of key locations, marking potential sites for decoys. Jake offered suggestions on how to construct believable fakes using salvaged materials. Emily saw an opportunity to amplify the deception through her broadcasts, spreading misinformation about where humanity's defenses were concentrated. It's risky, Lisa said finally, tapping her pen against the table. If they figure it out, they'll hit us where it hurts. But if it works, Ryan countered, it gives us a fighting chance. Over the next few days, teams worked around the clock to implement the plan. Engineers and volunteers built dummy facilities in remote areas, outfitting them with heat signatures and energy emissions to mimic real infrastructure. Others fortified actual power plants and supply lines, ensuring they could withstand attacks if discovered. Emily filmed segments showcasing these fake installations, emphasizing their importance in interviews and reports. Her words reached every corner of the globe, including the Empire's listening devices. Meanwhile, Ryan focused on gathering intelligence. Using telescopes and radar arrays, he tracked the movements of Imperial ships, searching for signs of their next assault. He also coordinated with resistance cells worldwide, sharing strategies and pooling resources. Communication became a lifeline, connecting disparate groups into a unified front. For the first time, humanity truly felt like one team, united by a common goal. Commander Vrax, however, wasn't idle. His holographic broadcasts grew more frequent, each message laced with threats and disdain. He mocked humanity's attempts to deceive him, claiming that no amount of trickery could save them. Yet, beneath his arrogance, there was a flicker of uncertainty. The loss of the flagship had shaken the Empire's confidence, even if only slightly. Ryan noticed it. Too, their attacks became erratic, less calculated than before. It was a sign that their overconfidence was cracking. The Empire struck again on a cold, moonless night. Waves of fighters descended upon Earth, targeting the decoy facilities as planned. Explosions lit up the horizon, shaking the ground miles away. From the safety of underground bunkers, civilians watched live feeds of the destruction, praying the ruse would hold. In the command center, Ryan and his team monitored the chaos, hearts pounding as they waited to see if the Empire would fall for the trap. "They're taking the bait," Lisa whispered, her eyes glued to the monitors. Dozens of alien ships swarmed around the fake installations, unleashing relentless barrages of energy beams and missiles. Jake smirked despite himself. "Guess they're not as smart as they think." But Ryan remained cautious. "Don't celebrate yet. This could still go sideways." His warning proved prescient. As the initial wave of attacks subsided, smaller scout ships broke off from the main fleet, scanning nearby regions for signs of activity. One of them veered dangerously close to a real power plant, hidden deep within a forest. Alarm bells rang in the command center as Lisa frantically tried to reroute drones to intercept it. "They're onto us," she shouted, her voice tight with panic. Ryan sprang into action. "Send everything we've got. We can't let them take that plant offline." The skies above the forest erupted in chaos as human forces clashed with the scout ship. Drones swarmed around it, firing EMP bursts to disable its shields. Ground teams launched surface-to-air missiles, forcing it to retreat. After several tense minutes, the scout exploded in a brilliant flash of light, crashing into the trees below. Everyone in the command center exhaled sharply, relief washing over them. For now, the deception had held. But Ryan knew better than to relax. The Empire's scouts had come dangerously close to uncovering the truth, and next time, they might not be so lucky. As dawn broke over the battered planet, Emily broadcast another report, highlighting the success of the defensive efforts. She interviewed engineers who had built the decoys. soldiers who had fought off the attackers, and ordinary citizens who had volunteered to help. Her words painted a picture of resilience and ingenuity, reminding viewers that humanity's strength lay not in its technology, but in its unity. "The Empire thought they could crush us," Emily said, her voice steady and defiant. "But they underestimated us. They underestimated our creativity, our courage, and our refusal to give up. No matter what happens next, we will stand together, because that's who we are." Her message resonated deeply, reigniting hope in even the darkest corners of the world. People rallied behind her words, doubling down on their efforts to resist. Factories churned out weapons and supplies faster than ever. Farmers donated food to feed soldiers and refugees. Artists created murals and songs celebrating humanity's spirit. Slowly but surely, the cracks in the Empire's dominance began to widen. Commander Vrax responded with fury. Another broadcast showed his holographic form towering over a burning city, his glowing eyes filled with rage. "You cling to false hope," he snarled. "Your tricks may delay the inevitable, but they cannot change your fate. Surrender now, or face annihilation." His words carried weight, but they no longer inspired fear. Humanity had seen past the Empire's facade of invincibility. They had tasted victory, however small, and it fueled their resolve. Even those who had doubted Ryan's plan now embraced it, realizing that resistance wasn't just about survival, it was about reclaiming their dignity. As the days passed, Ryan and his team prepared for the next phase of the fight. The Empire's forces were regrouping, licking their wounds after the failed assault. But everyone knew it was only a matter of time before they returned, angrier and more determined than ever. Ryan called another meeting, gathering his closest allies to discuss their options. "We've proven we can hit them hard," Ryan said, addressing the group. "But hitting isn't enough. We need to push back. Take the fight to them." Jake raised an eyebrow. "You mean, invade their ships?" "Exactly," Ryan replied. "If we can board one of their vessels, we might learn something valuable in their tech, flaws in their strategy. Information is power." Lisa hesitated, her brow furrowed. "It's dangerous. We barely survived the last infiltration." "I know," Ryan admitted, "but we don't have a choice. Sitting here waiting for them to strike isn't going to win this war." After a long silence, Jake nodded. "All right, let's do it." With renewed determination, the team began planning their most audacious mission yet. They would infiltrate an Imperial ship once more, this time aiming deeper into its core. The risks were immense, but so were the potential rewards. Humanity's future depended on their success, and failure was not an option.